Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, shall we? The first story is called She Deserved It. This was years ago in an old job. I came down with a serious case of gastroenteritis. I couldn't hold down water, it was so severe. I worked in an office where we shared desks, and because gastro is super contagious, I told my manager. I explained what was wrong and she threatened to reprimand me if I left sick. I phoned the doctor and got an emergency appointment. I explained that we only get that sick if we are off, 1 day's pay for the entire week, and what my manager had said. The doc gave me anti-sickness and anti-D tablets to try and ease it, but this was relentless. The tablets did nothing. So I go into work and I'm disappearing to the loo for one or the other every 5 minutes without fail. I hadn't slept for about 2 days, had sweats, was pale and my eyes were bugging out, but my boss just refused to accept that I was ill. Now I had some of the best productivity stats in the office, so the massive drop in my productivity caused the bigwigs to notice and I got pulled into a meeting. I explained everything, what my boss said, that the doctor had told me I needed to be off because it's super contagious and that I was left in a situation where I had to come in. The boss freaked out. My manager was pulled into a meeting and destroyed. I was assured that I would never be penalized because of what it was. 6 other people ended up off sick and I got an extra 2 days annual leave as an apology so I didn't take them to HR. Best bit, my manager was one of the people that caught it. They were off for nearly 2 weeks and the bosses, and not so few words, basically said they deserved it for what they said to me. The next story is called Unplanned Revenge. This story involves my foray into service management. I had been in my position and my location in a service management position and was consistently rated as the highest competent manager by my associates and had the highest client survey rating. Fact is, I just don't believe in treating coworkers like crap, even if they are low laborers, and when they need help, I help them, and if it's not right away, they know I'm doing so when I can. During my last year with the company, I received my annual service review. And frankly, I know it means nothing, and I'm fully aware that no one ever gets a perfect score, because that would indicate you know everything and are unreachable, so who could truly be that, right? Anyway, a mandatory part of finalizing the review process is signing off. My locations manager tells me to sign my review as she leaves to go home early to indicate that I have reviewed it and I can close the door to simply lock it. This is very normal and nothing anyone thinks about as far as the process, as we all do this. I go ahead inside and do it, but notice she left the screen on and I see my name on it for a quick second. I sign my name really quickly, but decide to take a quick peek. The darn thing is that the monitor in her office is made to auto-lock after 5 minutes of no activity, and she must have assumed that it locked already or forgotten to log off. I go in my review and see my scores and see my position is still the same. I do notice, however, that the keywords aggregated most commonly from my coworkers, such as great team player, to mentor and assist with passion, is contrasted with her summary of me at this location. This is normally kept private and privy to her and our regional manager's eyes. It says, generally a big loner and doesn't communicate with others on the team and tends to ignore pleas and requests for assistance, needs to really place others before himself. Now, I'm both angry and surprised at this point and decide to simply walk out and think about what was stated. The next day I show up for work and get asked to meet her in the office. According to the same boss lady mentioned above, my distinctive positive scores and praise by my coworkers and peers have earned me the right to a promotion. And she begins to offer me the position immediately below her. Now, I don't know what really went on in my head, but I blurt out something to the effect of, yeah, I can't, I'm actually leaving the company in 2 months. Far from the truth, but I suppose I was under the impression of my review still and make this giant lie to basically force myself to leave and just say screw it to myself. She is shocked and asks why I never told her I was job hunting, to which I reply, well, I was leaving in a few months when contracted, so I didn't want to say anything yet until you were settled in. She is shocked. I'm not, and she leaves for the day with mixed emotions. I have to set in stone which exact date I leave, and I do. It also turns out to be our inventory period, and I intentionally set my last day to the day after our inventory, so I can help out my friends. During this time I get 3 goodbye parties and meet the 2 folks who will replace me in my duties. Yes, they literally set themselves to hire 2 people to do my job. I tell them there are no hard feelings and such. Honestly, I wish them luck and advise them best as I can, because I know no one will take the time to teach them, and I kind of pity them for that. On my official last day, the bossy lady has to work a day she never worked ever in her entire 10 years with the company, because that is my final day. In her agitation, she says to come in next week and she'll make sure I'm paid and to hand in my company provided items. You see, I can only hand them to her, and her purpose of being there was to ensure that at the end of the day she gets it and everything goes smoothly. So the malicious compliance follows. I ask when a good time is for her to receive them, and she says whenever, and I'll pay you for the trip, and I go, okay. I honestly didn't think of anything much, and frankly thought this was the end of it anyways as far as our work relationship goes. So I come in 10 days later and say hi to everyone and bring donuts. I ask for the boss lady and get annoyed to learn that she isn't there, and that I have to hand it to my replacement as was her instruction to him. He takes it and gives me a receipt, but I mention that she said to pay me for my travel, to which he states that he was made aware of that. He puts a pay request in my former timecard slot for travel time for me, and I leave. A full 2 months later, I'm talking to my friend, and he casually mentions how they are still purging my info from the system. We laugh about this, and I ask which system am I still on, and he replies, the attendance system. I pause, then burst out laughing, and ask why she's so freaked out by that. According to my friend, the problem was that my last week was the end of the new period and the reason why our inventory was shifted this year to correspond to it. But because my travel time was added to a new period, it made me automatically eligible for that quarter's bonus. And because my bonus is based on merit and position, it would be the second highest in the location. To add insult to injury and pour more salt on the wound, because I wasn't featured in the system as a full-time active employee, my bonus would be a penalty on her and cause her to lose a percentage of her bonus in return. Sure enough, at the end of the period, when I came in and dropped off my items for submission, I got my check for my bonus. In the end, I complied with all of her requests fully and properly, but because of her improper assessment and inability to secure her monitor, I ended up getting a free bonus check at her expense. I also ended up finding another job 2 weeks before I was slated to leave that was far less stressful. None of this was ever planned, and it honestly felt amazing to discover one of the few times my gut instinct worked out. The last story is called I Will Get You Fired for This. This story is from more than 20 years ago. I was attending grad school at the time to finish my doctoral degree, which I'm only mentioning as relevant because the customer made a crack about intelligence while working at my father's business, an auto salvage yard. Our yard was located in New Jersey, and this event occurred in August, so it was hot and very humid. I was generally very dirty when I was at work, with grease and grime all over my arms and clothes. If you washed your hands and arms every time they looked dirty, your skin would just get dry and irritated. So with the exception of stopping to eat, I was absolutely filthy all day long. Our yard mostly dealt with shops and small independent mechanics who came in looking just as dirty as I was, so it was completely normal. Another point relevant to the story is this: I look absolutely nothing like my father. He is 5.8 and weighs at most 140 pounds, and I am at 6.2, and back then I was powerlifting and weighted around 220 pounds. So a guy comes in to pick up something he bought when I was not there that had to be taken out of a car. I don't even remember what it was now, but it was something fairly heavy, for him, not for me, and dirty. If we had parts in our warehouse, they'd get scrubbed and cleaned by me before being labeled and catalogued, but parts coming right off a car just had the loose grime knocked off. So the guy comes in, looking very out of place for our yard, wearing a button-down shirt, khakis and dress shoes. He hands me his receipt and I tell him I'll bring it out the side door. I walk out with his item on a hand truck, and the only vehicle I see parked is a really nice sedan, very unlike the beat-up shop vehicles most of our customers drove. The guy is walking around the front of his car, talking on his phone, but the trunk is open. So I bring the hand truck around and leave his item on the ground with a piece of cardboard to keep his trunk clean and go back inside. A few minutes later he comes inside, wanting to know what he is supposed to do with the part, to which I facetiously reply, install it I imagine. He wants to know why the part is dirty. I reply, it's used. He wants to know how he is supposed to get it home. I reply, in your car. He wants to know why I didn't put the item in his trunk, and I point to the sign behind him, which admittedly is partially obscured by the open door. It says that we are not responsible for loading parts due to liability for possible damage to the customer's vehicle. He turns around looking mad and shouts, What am I supposed to do now, genius? Because I must be done if I'm dirty, right? There are now 2 other customers by the office and I know them both well, so I tell them I'll be right with them and walk around outside to the guy's car because I just want him gone. I throw a blanket over the rear bumper of his car, remind him that I'm not liable for damage, and I lift the piece up and gently put it on the cardboard in his car. To do this without damaging anything, I had to put one of my hands on the side of the trunk and I left a huge greasy handprint, largely on purpose. While I'm loading, he is standing so close to me supervising that my arm bumps his arm and his sleeve gets dirty. The entire time this exchange has been going on, he has been on his phone and he is now ranting into his phone about our interaction, and he calls me genius again. I reply, you came to our salvage yard to pick up a heavy, dirty, used part in dress clothes with a luxury car. Who's the genius? At that point, he also noticed the grease on his car and his dirty sleeve, and he wants to know if the owner is there, and I tell him Bob is working out in the yard. He demands to speak to him, and I say fine. We walk back around to the office and I point to Bob, who's way out in the yard on the forklift moving cars that are going to the crusher. This is time sensitive, because the truck will come to pick them up and block the entire street while we load, so we have to be ready. He starts to walk into the yard and I try to stop him and tell him it's too dangerous. He keeps walking, so I point out that our Doberman is trotting along behind the forklift. She was actually our dog from home and very friendly, but we brought her with us every day because we couldn't get home to let her out. He sees the dog and stops, and I tell the guy he has to wait until Bob is finished moving vehicles, and it will be a while, which he says is fine because he is going to tell Bob exactly how his customers are being treated. Over the next 40 minutes I walk past the guy multiple times helping customers, and each time I pass him he mutters something about me being fired and me being sorry. Finally the forklift shuts down and Bob stands up, and my new friend seems ecstatic, banging on the counter and telling me that Bob is done and he wants to speak to him immediately. I walk outside with my new friend right next to me, climb on a car's fender and wave my arms to get Bob's attention and scream, "Hey Dad, this guy wants to talk to you." And with that, my new buddy says screw you, turns and walks out, hops in his car and guns it up the street. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button, it really helps in the algorithm. Have a great day, stay safe, bye bye.